Good afternoon. Today is July 26, 2022. My name is Richard Perez and I'm a Veterans Benefit Coach with the Hanford branch of Kings County Library. This interview is part of the Veterans History Project. Can you please state your full name?
My full name is Jose Angel Vasquez.
All right, Jose. Well, thank you again for taking the time and to come in and share your military experience. We want to start off first with your home, your early background, home background, and family background. Where are you from?
Originally, I'm from Maywood, California, down in East LA, and when I was about 4 or 5, my dad moved us up here. Well, my stepdad. I never met my real dad, never will, don't care. And he moved us up here. We moved about a block and a half away from here.
Wow.
And then we moved here and there until I was like 7. Then they finally bought a house. And in that time, day and age, it wasn't even in the city district, in the bounds. So we were basically considered country. We were out in the country. Anything past I think near Houston, at that time was considered out the boonies.
Right.
Yeah, there wasn't very much. It was still, back in those days, cotton fields, cornfields, all kinds of crazy stuff. And yeah, I've lived in Hanford most of my life. I grew up here. I couldn't call nothing else home. Because most of my friends are here. I still run into people I haven't seen in like 30 years.
Right.
Yeah, the only thing I have regrets about is every once in a while we don't get in touch. Because lately we've been getting in touch, but not in a good way. We just lost our high school coach, and yeah, that brought back a lot of good memories. But I was pretty sad for his family because he was a good guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are your parents still with us?
Yeah. My parents are 70-something years old and still alive and kicking.
Oh man, that's
And
awesome.
when I was a teenager, my senior year in high school, they decided to open a restaurant on the east, over there near Hanford Armona. Right now it's called Cisneros, but back in the 80s, late 80s, it was called Los Panchos. To this day, and I mean to this day, people ask my mom when they see her, "Do you still make chili breaded burritos?"
Mm-hmm.
And my mom goes, "Yes." And it's hilarious because sometimes I even get asked, and I'm just like, "What?" Because I only work there on the weekends, and I barely work there. And it's probably because I look just like her.
So both your parents or your mother, so what they did for a living was they owned a restaurant, and
My mom basically up to a certain point raised. I'm the oldest of 6. I have 4 younger sisters and a baby brother.
Okay.
And my dad was basically a butcher. He worked at Hanford Meat forever and a day.
Oh wow.
Then they went on strike sometime in 84, 85, and then he just went from wherever he can find work. And when he had to retire at I think just a few years from my age, he was like almost 60 when he was forced to retire. He threw his back out so bad that he couldn't work anymore. So
Okay.
yeah.
So I noticed you mentioned you have siblings.
Yeah, I have
And
4. Four sisters and a little brother.
So you know what their ages are?
My sister that passed away, Blanca.
Apologize.
Yeah, I miss her every day, but we weren't very close, and that's on me because I have a tendency to go dark, because a lot of it has to do with my time in service, and a lot of times I just go dark and just don't want to talk to anybody. It's not anybody's fault, it's just me. My sister Blanca, she was 2 years younger than me, so she would have been 51 by now. And then the sister after her is my sister Lisa. She would have been, she's 48, no. She's 2 years younger. She's 48, 49. And then the other 2, I don't know their ages, but this is my sister Maria and my little baby sister Teresa.
Okay.
And I have a little brother, and he's 10 years difference.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was an experice.
That's a big
I
gap.
had sisters until I was 10 years old, and I thought, oh man, my dad comes home from the hospital, and he's like, it's another girl, and I'm like, oh really? I'm down. My grandmother's been watching us the entire time, so she saw, don't lie to him. She's saying everything in Spanish. Don't lie to him. And he goes, it's a boy. I almost gave my grandma a heart attack. I'm freaking out, going all over the place.
Right.
Yeah, because I finally have a little brother, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not very close to him because I don't want to put lot of what's happened to me over time on my family, because it's me, I have to deal with it, not them. Like at one point, I just distanced myself. And I love my siblings, I love my brother, I love them all, but I'm not close to anybody. I'm just surprised I'm close to people now. Like I was telling you a little while ago, I have bad days, and bad days to where I won't even leave the house. Like when COVID hit, I wasn't affected whatsoever, because that's my everyday thing. I come to town once in a while just to entertain my mind, because if I let my mind go places, I'll do things I shouldn't, and I don't want to go there. I've been sober this long, and I'm going to keep being sober.
Good job, good job. So did any of your siblings serve in the military?
Nope. Out of my dad's side and out of my side, only 2 of us have ever served.
Okay.
And I'm the one from my mom's side, and then my cousin served in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
Yeah, his name is Ruben Padilla.
Ruben Padilla.
Yeah, he's my cousin Frank's our cousin.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a cop in LA now.
All right.
Yeah,
So he's continuing to serve.
He's a character. He posts some funny stuff on Facebook and makes me laugh.
Okay. So what did you do before you served?
At the time, before that, I was doing whatever I could do. I had a falling out with my parents. I didn't have no fallback plan. So I was basically living on the streets in Hanford.
Okay.
And at times I ended up moving to LA right after high school. Because my sister, the one who's gone, she got pregnant at 17. My dad's an old Hispanic, old man from Mexico, so he freaked out, period. And got to the point to where he wanted me to beat up this kid and that kid and this kid. And I'm like, Dad, I'm 19 at this point. They're all little kids, they're minors. I can't do that. And he wouldn't let it go. And I just couldn't do it anymore. I had been putting up with my stepfather. He's pretty much he's my dad, but he's not my blood dad. He's the man that raised me.
Okay.
A lot of my mental things sometimes is because of the way I was brought up. So, yeah, I moved to LA, was working at McDonald's for about 8 or 9 months. Then I got let go from that because of my temper, and then my aunt goes, "Why don't you join the military?" So I didn't want to go full time, so I joined the reserves.
Okay.
And
what military branch was that?
I was in the Army.
U.S. Army. Okay. U.S.
Yeah.
Army Reserves. So obviously you were enlisted. You enlisted.
Yeah, I was
U.S. Army Reserves.
0. It was a blank. I didn't have no rank. I went in Fort Benning in I think 90 or 91, somewhere in there. And that boot camp was probably the most amazing thing I could ever appreciate. I appreciate everybody. I remember the 4 guys that slept next to me. I remember how many guys were in it. I remember how many guys out of 50 guys, one guy got recycled because he broke his leg. But other than that, we all made it with flying colors. I remember the guys' name. I don't remember the first names, just their last, normal.
Right.
Normal, I don't even remember.
Oh, yeah.
There was Smith from Florida, Tadero from Nebraska, and Vela. And that guy was something else from I think it was Jersey or New York, I can't remember. No, Illinois. He was from Chicago, Illinois. And the 4 of us is like 4 musketeers. We were just always, hey, wake up, come on, we gotta get going. It was just, and that boot camp was not like it is now. It was hot balls to the walls. Right. Just like, handle your business, let's go. They're yelling at you from first day up to almost the last day. High stress the whole time. It was amazing.
So your experience with your drill instructor was
yeah, we had like
something to remember.
Yeah, with 3 or 4 of them, but we had this one guy. He was a Puerto Rican guy. And the only reason I remember his name because one of my mom's favorite singers is Jose Feliciano. That's what his last name was, Drill Sergeant Feliciano. And this guy was, wow. Full ruck, passing guys, and running. We're doing road marches, and he's passing guys, and we're all looking at him like, how is he doing that? I can't believe this. We even had I found out that they had like a tradition, and they would make a giant wooden board and have us paint on it. So one of the guys is a really good artist, and I'm a decent painter. So we decided to do we were called the Black Knights. So we did a black night, but it wasn't a normal black night. It was a mechanized black night.
Oh man.
He did like Robotech kind of post a giant board, and we were like, okay. Yeah, it was pretty neat.
So your boot camp experience was something to.
We got honor platoon.
Oh, that's good. That's outstanding.
Can't ask for nothing worse. So, and
So what inspired you to choose the Army or the branch?
to be honest, I had two dreams when I was a kid, from when I was little, because I always wanted to serve. I just didn't know what. One was either being a cop, or the other one was being a soldier. Behold, the opportunity came and I went for it. And I'm thankful for a lot of it, because to this day I can still walk from one end of town to the other on a hot day and not be bothered too much, which freaks out everybody else, because I'm in my 50s now and I'm still doing it, and you're like, how are you doing that? I'm like, yeah, you only knew about boot.
So you're adjusting to military life.
Yeah.
How do you see it, or how was it for you adjusting?
Got me squared away. Got me a lot of bad habits, but it gave me a lot of good ones.
Oh yeah.
Like I was never much of a haircut person. I never liked to cut my hair. I never liked to shave. Well, until I got really old, I didn't really have to shave. It took me almost a month until I had to shave something, and I had, gotta have your hair off your ears, gotta have everything squared away. So I was like, man, I'm gonna keep my stuff square. So I cut my hair, and to this day I still do it. For a while there I didn't, when I ended up getting into dark depression, which happened to be a period where I actually stopped drinking, which is a miracle in itself, because when somebody gets that low, you usually end up going there. And I went the exact opposite, which defines my life. Instead of doing like my dad always told me, all through school I would get in trouble, I would do this, I would do that, I'd do everything they told me not to do. And one day he just said, you're never going to amount to nothing, you're going to end up in prison for the rest of your life, blah, blah, blah. From then on, I was like, well, I'm going to prove you wrong, just like I'm going to keep proving you wrong for the rest of my life. I proved him wrong as soon as I graduated with honors.
Awesome.
I graduated a year late, but I graduated from Hanford High.
Well, congratulations, and you made the big decision that only a small percentage of Americans do make, is to join the military. So.
Well, I always wanted to serve. That's the main thing. I love this country. I get a lot of flack for not waving the Mexican flag around and not being, well, you don't speak Spanish, and I'm like, yo puedo explicar español, no te agüitas. Don't trip. I do speak Spanish. I just choose not to. I choose to speak it when I feel like it.
Right.
That's my gift. They gave us. That's what we fight for. That's what the men and women that join the service do. That's to protect our rights. And I wanted to be part of that, and that's what I did.
Okay.
And when people thank me, I don't need to be thanked. I loved every minute of it. I picked up a lot of bad habits. I ruined a marriage because of my own needs, but my entire time serving, I was honored to be part of the Army. I'm honored to see kids nowadays join the military. I had a guy from my church. He came up to me and he asked me what I thought of, joining the service, and I told him the truth. It's up to you. I can give you all the ins and outs, but I can't just tell you, what it's like, because it's not the same for everybody, especially when you go into a different field. He went into demolition, so he had a ball. Yeah, he's in Korea now. I think he's part of the unit that rotates through there from Fort Lewis. Yeah, so.
And what was your training? What was your job in the Army?
When I was reserves, I was 11 Bravo. When I got to the National Guard unit, which I ended up moving from LA to Hanford, it turns out they were tank killers, hotels, 11 hotels. So I was acclimating to that. Well, I met a girl, one thing led to another. Next thing I know, hey, you're about to be a dad. I'm like, well, it's time to grow up. Time to stop playing the reserves and go full time. So after 2 years in the reserves, I went full time.
All right.
And I just didn't want to be a foot soldier, so I asked him, can I get on a Bradley or something? And he goes, well, we always got room for tankers. I'm like, tank. I go, so I'm going to go from a tank killer to a tanker. And the guy's like, why not? I'm like, I guess so. So I went with the tanker school at Fort Knox.
So how was that specialized training for tanking?
Oh man, it was good, especially since there were a bunch. When I was at Benning, there was only a couple, maybe 2 guys that were prior service, and they were nowhere in our platoon, and they kept them separated from us because the drill instructors didn't want them talking to us, telling us the ins and outs. They wanted us to learn the hard way. But when I got there, every platoon had at least 1 or 2 guys that were prior service. And the best part about that is we didn't have to do all the road marches. Especially when they found out me and maybe 3 other guys were all prior infantry. And they were like, you guys march more long. I think we did about 20 miles on our last one, 20, 25. And Fort Knox, they only do 15 at their end. And I'm like, whips. But it was cold. It was cold. It was in Kentucky.
Oh yes, Kentucky, out in Fort Knox, correct?
Yes, sir.
So after you completed your active duty training, you're coming on active duty to become a tanker. What was your first assignment?
I got assigned to Germany, Mannheim, Germany.
Mannheim,
I
Germany.
was part of the 3rd Brigade, 377th Armor. I ended up in the line. I wanted to go. They have room for us in the line company, so they put us in support. And my first 24 hours there, or 48 hours, was like the craziest things I'd ever heard or seen. We got put up over the headquarters until they find places for us to sleep in the line companies or the headquarters or whatever. Well, as we're up there, this guy comes, the guy that's room it is, he comes up, he goes, well, something crazy just happened. And I'm like, what happened? He goes, some guy just did something nuts. And we kept pressuring him, asking him, what is it? And it turns out this guy found out his wife was cheating on him, which is all common in the military because it happens. And she was pregnant, and he thought it was his. It turns out it wasn't. So he shows up with a box, shows the box to his wife, and he goes, it's a present for you. He shows it to her. She opens it up. It's the head of the guy she's been sleeping with.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, cut his head off, and then he jumped out the window and killed himself. I was like, whoa. I was like, are you serious? He goes, yeah.
So that was your introduction to arriving to Germany.
That, and then later on that night, we went out drinking, and some guy was whooping it up because he was like 12 hours in the wake up. He was about to go home.
Okay.
This guy,
So he's ready to go back to the States.
yeah, he's whooping it up so bad that he goes, watch, they'll never find me. And I'm like, what is he talking about? He had a plan, and we didn't know what he was talking about. And then all of a sudden, he goes, hey, watch this. He's got himself a BMW. BMWs are a dime a dozen. They have them as taxis over there. Mercedes too.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's he gonna do? He's like, oh man, he's gonna do it. I'm like, what do you mean he's gonna do it? He starts backing his car up, and the streets in Germany and most of Europe are really, really narrow.
Yes, they are.
And he's backed up. He's hitting every car on purpose, backing up, and he's totally plastered. He shouldn't even be behind the wheel. He's leaning it up and down the street. He's smashing cars, just everything. Then he disappeared. The next thing I know, we hear he made it onto his flight, went home, and I was figuring, well, they get him, because the crazy part is this guy was a native, so he lives on the rest. He disappeared into the rest. They never found him. I was like, are you serious? And I'm like, I can't believe I'm seeing this. And it's just one crazy thing after another. It was like, wow.
So did you like your assignment, your first assignment?
Oh, I loved Germany.
Yeah.
I loved the Germans were super cool. The area was just, it reminded me of Hanford at times, but at times it was just way colder because, it does snow in Germany.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, it was incredible. There was times where we'd be outside, and one of my bad habits that I picked up was smoking. So we'd be sitting there smoking for like ever in a day, chain smoking, and it was incredible. Like the craziest things I saw when I was on my side during the time I was in was I ended up in the headquarters company. And I'm like, what are we going to be doing? It's not tankers, Are we going to be helping people? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean by helping people? So we ended up in a platoon called Support Platoon. All they do is help the rest of the battalion out. And they go, you're going to be driving that. And I'm like, what is that? And they're like, it's a Hammond. I'm like, hey, what's a Hammond? And they're like, you're going to learn. It's a truck that has a 100-degree turning radius. And it's got a crane on the back, and it pops out the legs, it goes down, and you can use the crane to lift stuff onto it.
Yeah.
Turns out that's what we use to lift them. When we go to Graffin Rear for gunnery, when guys would go to qualify weapons and everything, we were there giving them their ammo, small arms, everything. And then we'd have to, no matter how big, I mean, like it could be like 4 boxes of rounds for mortars, we'd still have to strap it down. That was reg. It was regulations. You had to. It's SOP. You had to. Standard operating procedure. You had to do it. And I'm like, good gravy, this is ridiculous. 3 straps for this 2 little boxes. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. My first time out in the truck, I nailed it a tree. But not head on, but the mirror. And I didn't exactly get it perfectly because they do these roundabouts. The first thing you do when you pull out of the motor, after you get out of off our base where we're at, right into a roundabout, every which way.
Right.
And I nailed a tree. Pow! My sergeant's riding. It's my qualifying driving, and my sergeant's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Everybody does it." I'm like, "Going for real?"
So you were traveling then, did you guys travel from Mannheim to Grafenberg? To those
Drove to Grafenberg in the
So you
hammocks.
had to drive on those Autobahns.
Yep.
And that German Autobahn, sometimes there's no speed limit. in some
There
areas.
isn't. They could say there is, but there isn't.
No.
My
That's
first,
so far.
we're on our way to Grafenberg, and I'm riding along, and the first thing I'm tripping out on is that a nuclear reactor? And they're like, yeah, and I'm like, I've never seen one so close. I'm freaking out. I've never seen a nuclear reactor that close. It's like from here to the Civic. I'm like, what? And then the first accident I seen was kind of I see this car fly by me, bright red, just flying. And I'm like talking to my co-driver, happened to be my roommate, Yura. And I go, hey, what was that? He goes, oh, it was a BMW. I'm like, you can see that? He goes, yeah. And then all of a sudden, about half mile away, I see something pop up in the air, and I'm like, is that red? And he goes, yep, it's probably that same BMW. I'm like, what? We came up on it, body parts here. Turns out a lot of times when the Germans, I don't know why, they have their old hoopties, and they drive it in a fast lane, which they shouldn't, but they do, and sometimes they break down, and nobody's going to stop and help.
Right.
So they leave them. They stay right there, and they're trying to fix their car. And people are speeding. It doesn't matter how fast they're going. They could be driving the speed limit if they don't slow down fast enough. They're just going to hit it either way, and they hit. I've seen at least 9 accidents. At least 6 of them were fatal. Maybe 3 of them people survived. I was surprised on that because up until that point, every time I saw an accident, people were dying, super dead. That was traumatizing because I'd seen a dead body here and there because my dad was a butcher, so I seen him butcher animals and whatnot, but I've never seen him be torn apart like that. It was, that was very
So your
stressful.
travels from your main base to your training location was sometimes of an experience, a life experience that you'll always remember. How do you reflect those experiences? How do these experiences impact your life? Either be, not the travel, the traveling, but also the training, the exercises you did in the military. How have they impacted?
Training was motivating to keep going.
Mhm.
Helped me to keep going because there was times where we would get sick. One time there was like, we had like 12 trucks and only 6 of them were running because everybody else was sick or they were broke down.
Mhm.
So some of us was pulling double, triple duty. I was up for 72 hours once,
Okay.
driving in the nighttime as well as the daytime, drinking coffee like it's no. Well, we're popping Vibrant at the time. Every 8 hours, we're like popping up a Vibrant to keep ourselves awake, and it was.
You guys had 24-hour operations, training.
It was scary. It's because the mortars had that. The mortars and a lot of the other guys, they were doing it like they were in the middle of combat.
Uh-huh.
They were trying to simulate it. I don't know what they were doing. All I know is we had to be at a certain spot at a certain time.
You had to be
And
there.
Grafenwehr is just a big giant circle.
Yeah.
It's just, they were always in, the mortars is over here, the scouts are over there, the main guns are like in the middle, and they're all spread out, and they don't all do it at the same time. They all do it at different days. And, it was just stressful.
So as a support platoon, transporter, logistics type person, you had to make sure you were at those locations.
Yeah, on time. You got to make
To
sure
provide those
make
logistics
sure the
and
guy with you is squared away.
ammunition or all that for them, right? So it was important that you guys had to make sure that.
Yeah,
you
we
were
had
there
to
on
make sure
time.
we had the right rounds
And you
because
had
some
the
of the
right-
guys,
Yes, exactly. And
some of the
location.
guys, some of the guys wouldn't bring the right rounds. Some of the guys would take in.
And that delayed the exercise or the training event.
We get chewed out. We get that. Some of the scouts, the chain of command would smoke us right there on the pad. They drop, give me 100. I'm like, and we're all like, same boo.
So you and your battle buddies, had some remedial training, you can say.
Oh,
Extra
after it happened
training.
once, I never had it again because I wasn't about to get remedial training.
So with your battle buddies, your military friendships, so tell me about that. How was that?
Michael Ura was my roommate
Uh-huh.
until my wife got there. Most of the time, about 2 years. Took me a while to get her there because nobody wanted to help me. I asked around, and everybody's like, "Dude, they don't want to." A lot of guys were getting there. At the time, we had sergeants that had been sergeants for 12 years, and they were like, "You either try to move up or you're out."
Mhm.
And a lot of them were getting out. Even the guy that moved up to sergeant, he just said, "I'm done. I see my time." Hey, the guy seen Desert Storm, and he came back with a photo album that kind of freaked me out because it had pictures of Highway to Hell, which had a bunch of blown up cars and bodies.
Right.
And I'm like, and he was telling us stories about how guys would get out of their vehicles and go rob those people. And I'm like, what are these guys doing? Half the world already hates us half the time, and they're making us look even worse than normal. It was just crazy.
Do you still stay in contact with any of your friends or battle buddies?
It's not their fault. It's me. There was an incident where Euro was supposed to go with me to lunch at Burger King because there was a Burger King right on the other side of one of our sister unit's motor pool, and Euro decided to go take a nap. I'm like, you're lazy. So I went to Burger King, and I take a shortcut through the motor pool. So as I'm going through the motor pool, I jumped the fence, went to Burger King, got my food, ate. Oh, it's almost time to go back. I jumped the fence and head back. I got maybe 2 feet out of the motor pool, and this is during the winter time. One of the fueler trucks exploded. I noticed the guy that was on one of the fueler trucks was wearing gear that he shouldn't be wearing. You're not supposed to wear jungle boots because they have nails in the bottom of them. You're not supposed to wear any kind of winter stuff underneath your BDUs because of static electricity. This guy was just doing everything you're not supposed to. And then on top of that, and I thought I was wrong when I walked by, and I turned out I was right. He didn't ground the truck. You have to put a metal rod into the ground through the cracks. You pop a metal rod, and they have like a wire that connects to the truck. You bring it out, you connect it to that wire. Every fueler truck is supposed to be grounded. His wasn't. Everything this guy did was wrong, and he almost lost his life. He lost both his legs, his right arm, and he burned the crap out of his left arm. And I got knocked I got knocked down, and I was just like, whoa. I seen him when they brought him by, and I was kind of like shocked by the whole thing. And then I got back to my unit, and then I realized I think I have a concussion because I'm dizzy. So I would go to medic and hey, good job, you got a concussion. I'm like, oh great. Yeah, so that was just a.
Mr. Vasquez, sounded like you had a lot of experience and real life experience of what's going on.
Not even combat. I mean, it's like it's the craziest things. It's just every time. Like I missed but when I went into active duty, I just missed the riots in LA.
Mm-hmm.
When they called on the National Guard to go,
Yes.
Our unit was one of them. When I
So
came
you
home,
transitioned
when I came home from Fort Knox, and I went to go say hi to the guys, they were all getting ready to ship out down to LA.
Mm-hmm.
I missed that, and then I already missed Desert Storm, so I'm like, man, I just keep missing everything, and I kind of, in a way, kind of feel guilty. It's like I didn't pull my weight. I think that bothers me because I don't, I know guys. I have a buddy that on that assignment down in LA, he got into an accident and he busted his leg so bad he discharged. They had to discharge him for that. If I had been there, I would have been able to help him. There's a lot of times that I just feel aftermath, remorse, guilt, and a lot of times it bothers me. That's why a lot of times I walk around and I have music in my head, so I won't be thinking about it. Because a lot of times that's one of the bad things that I got from being in the service, dwelling on things I wish I could have helped, I wish I could have done. Mm-hmm. But I can't help that now, and
Right.
what is done is done.
Right, so, how long did you serve, Joe?
I served 3 years, 3.5, but
So towards the
active
end
duty.
So towards the end of your active duty career, your service ends, and you're returning home. How was your return home?
It was nice. It was good. It was an experience. Found out that unit was being, I was part of the 3rd Brigade, and they were being mobilized to be attacked. They were moving the brigade most of the brigade, they moved them to Fort Lewis, Washington.
Right.
We came part of 2nd Infantry, 1st of the 33rd.
Was that your brigade? Was that the one that was going to be a striker brigade eventually?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they were the
right
first
bef-
initial.
Yeah, right when we got there, we found out you got about a year,
Mhm.
and you're going to rotate into Korea.
Okay.
I'm like, oh. And my wife was like, what do you mean you're going to rotate to Korea? I'm like, are we going to? I'm like, wife, don't go. She's like, okay, well, near the end of my tour, we're in the middle during training, we're out doing, just exercises, training for combat.
Mm-hmm.
Our company commander just wanted us to be mobile. He goes, we were all trained infantry, a lot of the guys are forgetting the fundamentals.
Right.
So he had us out there doing it. The only problem was he wanted us to run around with full rucks. And I know for a fact that's not smart because a lot of these guys haven't been doing that. A lot of these guys have never done it. And that first day, guys were blowing their knees out because he was making us walk through the woods, just like we were in a combat situation, except he was forcing them to walk through the hardest terrain, not finding the easiest path. And guys were blowing their knees out, including me. I busted my knee to where I couldn't move it for weeks. And that's not even the worst part. I almost lost my right eye in a training exercise. They were training me to be a gunner. They had me in the gunner seat. And we had a new driver. Because usually I was the driver before that. And I was having a good time. And our training commander tells us, hey, be careful with the divots. The holes where the tanks go. Well, he was hauling, he didn't pay attention, and he fell into a divot. And everybody went like this, and I went all the way forward and smacked my right eye straight into the eyepiece. Mm-hmm. I couldn't see anything for at least 3 or 4 days. Mm-hmm. I didn't have to wear glasses all the time back in the day. All I had to do is wear them to read, and maybe to drive depending on how tired I was. And then I had a patch over my eye for 3 weeks. They were afraid because I still couldn't see for a couple of days. They were afraid my eye detached. So I was like freaking out. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to be a pirate for a while. We'll see what happens. And luckily for me, my vision finally came back.
Well, that's good.
But now I have to wear glasses all the time.
So now that your career is coming to a close, how was your readjustment to the civilian population or post-military?
Well, with me getting out the way I did, I drove home from Washington, Fort Lewis, Washington to Hanford.
I-5 South.
All the way
Yeah, I
down.
remember that. I understand.
And I'm driving a Buick Regal, 82 four-door Buick Regal that my ex-wife's dad helped us get. Well, I did the one thing I should never done, taking it to the dealer that I bought it from to have them change the oil, do all the stuff. Well, turns out they did not put the oil pan on right on purpose, which I found out way later. And it blew a rod. The thing was, by the time I got to Oregon, it was smoking. It was smoking, knocking, making every sound you can hear, think of. I got a brand new baby girl who was planned, by the way, which out of all 5 of my kids, only one planned. And my son, and I'm driving, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? So we stop in a little town called Brownsville, Oregon. Call my mom, I say, hey, I need some help. I don't know what to do. She said, where you at? We're at a U-Haul. She goes, nope, her mom doesn't have a credit card. Do you have a credit card? She goes, yeah, you can use my credit card. Mom didn't think twice, but she did tell me you have to pay me back. I'm like, of course. So I rented a U-Haul truck, put my car on the dolly, disconnected the driveline, and drove back. My son's sitting in the middle. I'm sitting here. My wife's sitting over here, and my daughter's at her feet. My brand new, not even 6-month-old daughter.
Oh, wow.
Yep, drove all the way home. And when I got back home, I was like, what? When I left in, I think it was 89 from Hanford, but I came back for a while. But when I still lived here, half the town was still the same. When I came back in 95, it was totally different. Like the old Hanford Mall was gone.
Right.
Or the King's Mall, I think. Yeah, well, King's
King's
Mall was gone. JCPenney's was gone. I'm like, what? What in the world's a Monty Mart? Why is there a stoplight over here off of the, I can't remember the freeway over here.
198?
Yeah. Why is there a stoplight when it comes off? And I'm like, there's a stoplight there. There wasn't a stoplight before. And I get to the next one and I'm like, what's Rite Aid?
Right. A lot has changed since you were
I couldn't believe it.
serving in the U.S. Army.
Well, as soon as I went by the high school just to go by it, and I'm like, where'd all the lockers go? There were no lockers. All the lockers are gone. I felt so bad for the kids. I'm like, well, all my kids are going to be happy with this because we had lockers all through high school, and these kids did not get them.
So now that you came back home finally, and you saw how much Hanford has changed since you had left, what did you do? What was your occupation after?
Well, first job I got was working in an arcade.
Okay.
In the new mall, Hanford Mall. They had it was called Aladdin's Castle. I had a buddy. He was like my best friend at the time, and he hooked me up with the job, and I excelled. I excelled so much I actually became one of the senior attendants. It was basically it's the manager's assistants.
Okay.
The assistants, if the manager's not working, the assistants, the senior attendants run the show. And they have to distribute money, fix the machines. And I learned a lot how to fix especially pinball machines, because I couldn't believe how much you have to do to fix a pinball machine.
Oh, yeah.
Solder stuff, and make sure this stuff is connected, plug it in a couple of times, and pray to the Lord that you don't blow it up.
So did you continue any education or anything after that?
I wish I had.
Your Army career?
I wish I had, but I was too busy being an idiot and drinking. And one of the bad things I took from the military is I enjoyed my liquor, enjoyed it too much, and I ruined my marriage because of it. I started, when I'm drunk, I have a wandering eye, and one thing led to another, and I ended up with 3 more kids, but not from my wife. So she divorced me. I ended up on just here and there and everywhere. And then I finally got a job at Sears, at the old Sears, the one on 7th. Loved that place. I was there for 2 years. Right when they moved is when they weren't going to give me full time. I was like, there were only 2 in-stock specialists in the whole store. One was for the soft lines, the clothing and whatnot, and then me. I was on the other side. I didn't do electronics or any of the refrigerators or stuff, but I did everything else. I kept track of all the tools. And you would not believe how many tools you have to keep track. The whole time I'm thinking, this reminds me of keeping track of main gun and ammo. Because we did pretty much the same thing, even down to the shells, making sure you have every shell. Because we had a chain of command that would count it. And yeah, I loved my time. I even took so many correspondence courses that there was only 4 people in the entire store that took as many as me, and 2 of them were management, and the other person turned out to be my buddy. He was from Oakland. His name was I think it was Albert or something like that. He was a cool guy. We're both Raider fans, so that's why we reconnected. So he was, yeah, that was pretty good. And then I met the wrong woman, had 3 kids, and then I was working at Wilshire Paint, which was right next door to the old Sears. And then I knew that wasn't going to cut it, so I got another job at Beacon on the same road on 7th Street. I think it's I know something now. And I was working both jobs. I worked the paint store in the morning, and I worked the other one at night. And like every night, I'm sitting there right after I get home. As soon as my kids go to sleep, because I never drank in front of them. Refused to drink in front of them. I would get drunk and just sit there wallowing just wallowing. And during this entire time, this woman is not keeping the house clean while I'm at work. She's just letting it go. She's at one point she stockpiled diapers. I mean, like there was a trash bag full of diapers sitting right there by the front door, and the trash can the dumpster's like 8 feet that way, and she just refused to take it. So yeah, and then we lost our kids, and I ended up homeless for the second time in my life. So I ended up making her go to the women's shelter, and then I ended up wandering around the streets of Hanford for about a year, and which happened to be the only reason I remember so vividly, because 9/11 happened when I was living on the streets. And my first thought was, I need to get back in. This is messed up. I was angry, but the one thing I did get out of that really, to this day, I'm thankful for, I stopped drinking.
That's good. So based on your experience post-military and reflecting on your life and your experience, I mean, how has your military service affected your life, and what lessons or observations did you gathered?
A lot of the positives I got from the military is I double check everything. I never let anything go to chance. I make sure that if I'm going to be squared away, I'm going to be squared away. I want to make sure my hair's straight. I make sure my clothes are straight. I think 2 or 3 days in advance over things. Like at home, when I'm doing stuff, I make sure if I'm doing it right then and there. I ain't putting it off. If I put it off, I get aggravated with myself. And a lot of the good things that I picked up in the military, I try to teach to my son. Because my youngest son lives with me, my oldest, and three of my kids live in New Mexico. One of them lives in the other town, and one lives here. And he lives with me, and I just don't want him to end up in the same situations like me, because a lot of times I ended up having hard times, and as you can see, I'm missing teeth and stuff. And I never dwelled in the hard drugs, but I did end up getting in a lot of fights. Military helped me keep me level-headed, keep me on a even swivel. It's kind of like paranoia. I came up with a motto: DTA, don't trust anybody. And it's not because I can't trust anybody. It's just that I've learned that over time, people have to earn your trust. Trust isn't just given; they have to earn it. And to me, that's how I see people. They have to earn my trust, because I'm not just going to give it to you like it's a free handout. Because I've learned that people can be ruthless, especially when I was living on the street. I lived on the streets twice. One, I was still drinking, and I didn't pay attention what was going on then. The second time, I was straight and I was sober, and I paid attention, and I still pay attention. One of my little things is, with those headphones I wear, I am not just listening to music, I'm paying attention to everything around me.
Right.
I don't take anything chance. I don't trust people, and it's kind of messed up, but it's what's kept me alive.
Okay. So, Mr. Vasquez, so future generations will see your interview. What would you like them to know?
Military is a good thing. Teaches you standards you should apply to yourself and keep them. And it teaches you how to be a better man, better woman. I met people in my time in the military. I was so honored to have served with them because they're great people. And a lot of the kids that have served during wartime, I have nothing but utmost respect for them because they did what I wish I could have done, but it wasn't my time. But another thing is, the military is not for everybody. Some guys just can't deal with the hardships that come from being in service. Watching your buddy get run over by a truck, and you're thinking he's dead, and then he pops up and he's still alive. And you're like, what? And, you know, like, I think it was my first, they took us to desert training in Fort Irwin. And it was I ended up on KP because my vehicle, my track got broke. It was broken, so I ended up on KP for 24 hours. And I'm trying to fall asleep because I have only a couple hours until we had to serve breakfast. All of a sudden the radio starts going off. And with the radio going off, we call that night the night of 1,000 bites. They tell us not to sleep on the ground out in the desert, and there's a reason. Guys in the National Guard do not listen. And I'm a kid, so I'm paranoid, I'm freaked out. So I'm laying everywhere but the ground. And about 20 guys got medevaced out because they get bit by scorpions. Scorpions climbed into their bed. And things like that. A lot of people just can't take it. Like, even I have my breaks and times where, I told you guys that when I first got here, I'm having a good day, but it's not always the case. Sometimes I just want to be alone, and that's just me. A lot of guys that come home still in the right state of mind, but they're holding something inside, and they don't want anybody to know. And a lot of these guys saw combat. Me, all I did was see my buddies get hurt. I got hurt. I don't know how many concussions, how many bar fights I got into, and just, it's not for everybody. But if you want to serve, do your part for your country, because that's what I did it for in the first place. I joined because I love this country, and I want to do my part, because I can honestly say, out of many people I know, I've served my country, and I served it with honor, and not everybody can say that.
Mr. Vasquez, well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to do this interview. But most importantly, thank you for serving our country.
I was honored.